When exactly did the Europeans start significant intellectual theft from India? They had no inventions and discoveries for forever, essentially. And then suddenly there was this barrage of new theorems and concepts. This period also seems to coincide with India's decline under successful invasions and the beginning of Turkic colonialism. Perplexity refuses to admit that Kepler or Newton got any knowledge from India. No intellectual theft happened, and these people only built upon what their European predecessors like Tycho Brahe, Galileo, and Copernicus originally came up with. Infuriating. All major physics laws formulated by Europeans like Kepler, Newton, Galileo's discoveries of certain rings, etc., all seem to be from the 1600s. Suddenly, everything starts in the 1600s. Right after Jesuits visited India and European colonialism was taking root. Is it a coincidence? Also, these extractions are being called rumors by chatbots like what? Perplexity. I'm sure ChatGPT and whoever else, right? All these chatbots. So what's the deal? How did this all begin? It all begins with the destruction of India's universities and libraries. India was the inventor of the concept of the university. The oldest university that we know of is Takshashila, which has its origins in the around the mid first millennium BC. And we had universities across the length and the breadth of India. Nalanda, Takshashila, Tilhara, Udantapuri, Vikramshila, Shardapet, and so on and so forth, so many. So we had universities all over the place. Now you have the Turks who eventually start conquering various parts of India, and whenever they see a temple, they destroy it. They plunder all the gold and jewels and all that. And wherever they see universities, initially the Turks sent interpreters and scholars, okay, to India, and they would visit our universities. They would visit the libraries, and they would take all the texts that they found interesting. So if it was a text about Hindu philosophy, they didn't care about it. But if it was a text about mathematics, about astronomy, about pharmacology, about toxicology, about science, about medicine, etc., all these applied subjects, they wanted that knowledge. So these Al-Khwarizmi and Al-Biruni, etc., they all came to India. They took whatever they could, all the texts they could, and they studiously, religiously translated all these texts from Sanskrit into either Persian or Arabic. And the Arabs who did this, they did not conceal the fact that this was Indian knowledge. Al-Khwarizmi says, what did he title his book? Kitab al-Hisab al-Hind. Let's Google it, shall we? Am I making this up? Let's see. Okay. Kitab al-Hisab al-Hind. What was this? It's a book by the Persian mathematician Al-Khwarizmi, which translated the Indian decimal positional system to Arabic. Kitab al-Hisab al-Hind, right? The principles of Hindu reckoning. So that's by Al-Khwarizmi. This is this is Kitab fi Usul Hisab al-Hind. It's a different book. It's a book of mathematics written by Kushyar ibn Labban. And you have all these different Arabic and Persian translators who translate all these Indian texts into their languages, and they don't claim that they invented or discovered any of this. But today, Al-Khwarizmi, Al-Biruni are regarded by the West as polymaths, as if they came up with all these concepts on their own. They never claimed that this was their, this is knowledge that they came up with. They were simply translators. But today, the Westerners portray Al-Khwarizmi and Al-Biruni, etc., as the independent discoverers of all these things. So that's where the distortion begins. And then you had these Jesuits who would come to India. So what happened is that the Arabs and the Persians, they took all of this knowledge from India. Eventually, the occupiers, the Turkic occupiers of India, destroyed all the universities and burnt all the libraries. But all the interesting texts were taken and absorbed and translated into Islamic languages, Persian and Arabic. And all of this knowledge that flowed into the Islamic world, it gave rise to what they call the golden age of Islam. 2-3 centuries of liberal thought in Islam, of a flowering of knowledge. You had the great library of Baghdad and the Islamic golden age, which was brought to a sudden abrupt end by the um, by the conquest of the Arabic world, of the Islamic world by Shri Hulegu Khan, the grandson of Shri Chinggis Khan. He almost destroyed the Islamic world, and that was the end of the Islamic Golden Age. But by that time, these translations of Hindu texts, of Indian texts, were beginning to trickle into Europe. And that's why the Europeans decided that this was all Arabic stuff. And even when the Europeans knew that the Arabs had translated Sanskrit texts, they still decided to ascribe all this knowledge to the Arabs, and they started claiming that Al-Biruni, etc., were polymaths. Then 15th, 16th century onwards, the Jesuits, who are the world's greatest thieves of knowledge, they started coming to India. They started interacting with Brahmins in various parts of India and collecting astronomical and other data, carrying it to Europe, going to Kerala, discovering calculus, carrying it to Europe. And suddenly, in the same year, both Newton and Leibniz discover calculus. Same year. For 10,000 years, Europe did not know what mathematics was. Suddenly, the same year, within a couple of months of each other, few months of each other, both Leibniz, who is in Germany, and Newton, who is on an island in the Atlantic, both of them independently discover calculus. What a goddamn joke. So the Europeans absorbed as much knowledge as they could. Most likely, Kepler, who was a student of Tycho Brahe, if I'm not mistaken. So Kepler most likely got all this astronomical data from India, through Jesuit priests, and based on all these centuries of astronomical observations, he was able to derive what is now called Kepler's three laws of planetary motion. Most likely, these laws were known in India, but our historians won't bother to research this and put it out in the public domain. So that's the deal. So all of this Indian knowledge, scientific knowledge, was absorbed by the West, and today they portray it as something that either the Arabs have discovered or that they came up with on their own. And that's the deal.